I'm Kat Kremser for CreativePro, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at all of the new features in the updated font browser in Adobe Illustrator. The font browser is one of the features that got the biggest overhaul in the new 2026 version of Illustrator, adding plenty of features that help you organize, filter, and search for new fonts from the Adobe Fonts collection without ever leaving the app. One thing to note is that the font browser itself is not a separate panel, so you can access the interface for this feature any way that you would normally open up the character panel. In my sample document here, I'll just go ahead and click on one of the text items, and when I do that, you can see here in the Properties panel that the character panel does come up. If I click here into the font field to change the font family, and click on the arrow to open up that menu, we'll get a pop-up here of our normal fonts. However, I usually find that the options are cut off when I open it from the Properties panel. So depending on your workspace, you might find it more comfortable to access it down here in the contextual toolbar if you have that open. However, I know that a lot of people like to hide that bar. So the most foolproof way to get this on your screen is to go into your window menu, down here to type, and just go ahead and open the character panel itself. And now you can just go ahead and drag that anywhere on your screen so that we have a lot of room to work when we open the font browser panel by clicking into the font window and opening up that arrow. I do want to note that one of the menus that I'll be showing you is this filters menu, which flies out to the side, so you can see how that might get cut off if you are working in the more narrow properties panel. So let's take a look at our main tabs here. Starting on the left here, we've got your fonts. This is going to be the regular list that you're used to of all of the fonts that are installed currently on your computer. Now, one of the things that's been enhanced are some of the icons that you'll find. Once you've hovered over a font, you'll see a live preview of your text changing to that font if you do have text selected. And over here on the right, we have a few new buttons to look at. I do want to point out one of the really useful ones. If I hover here over the config variable font, the last icon to the right here says added fonts if I mouse over that, and that's an indicator that this font has been added from the Adobe Fonts library. And if I go down here to minion variable and we look over here to the last icon, you can see that it now says variable font. This is an indicator because it doesn't have that cloud icon that that font is a locally installed font. So anytime we have a locally installed font, it will instead display what type of font we have here. So true type, open type, or variable, etc. We also have a few buttons here that are new. We can add to favorites. I'll go ahead and click this. So we have one in that favorites tab so we can see when I show you that. We also have a Find Similar button, which will open up a search of Adobe Fonts to try and locate similar fonts. And we have a new Add Fonts to Library option. And if you haven't experimented with organizing your fonts with libraries, it can be very convenient to save different sets of fonts that match themes, or for example, a set of brand fonts for specific clients. At the top here, you'll notice that we have quite a few options for filtering. If I click on the favorites icon here, it's going to filter down to the favorites list. I've only added that one font where we've just clicked the star to add that, and this can be a great way to bookmark fonts that you use over and over. We've also got a recently added fonts filter. I have not added any fonts recently, so this list is empty for me right now, but this can be really handy if you've just added a bunch of fonts and you can't quite remember what they were called. You can use the recently added filter to find those quickly. And I want to note here that once you've clicked on a filter, it will still be applied until you either click it again to remove that specific filter, or you click the Clear All button over here to go back to your full list. Our next filter over here is Local Fonts. So this is going to filter out fonts that have been installed from the Adobe Cloud and only show physical font files that are present on your computer. This is the filtering in document. This will filter only fonts that are present in your document, so that makes it nice and easy to see how many fonts you've actually used. And the final filter button up here is the Adobe Fonts filter. And so if I click that, it's going to show all of the fonts that I've added to my Creative Cloud applications from the Adobe Font collection. If you want to adjust any of these filters, for example, the recently used fonts filter, you can set a number in here. So do check out this little settings button for a few more options. If you like your fonts to be a bit larger, maybe you're working on a high resolution monitor, you can always go ahead and set that here so you can see the letter forms just a bit bigger as well. Moving next to the Libraries tab, what you'll see here is a list of any of your Adobe Creative Cloud libraries that include a font. You can also create a new library from this window, which is a great shortcut. If you want to, for example, create a new library and just add the fonts from this document, we can flip back to the Your Fonts tab, go ahead and filter by document, and now I can easily add to the Brand Fonts library right from here. so that I get all of these fonts saved into a nice organized space that I can now share with clients or coworkers. And if we go back to our Libraries tab, now you'll see your new brand fonts folder with the 3 personal fonts. But the Discover More tab is one of the more exciting features that's been recently added and polished. I'm going to clear all my filters here so you can see the full interface for the Discover More tab. And this is going to give us a window right into the entire library of Adobe Fonts so that we can explore different styles, look at trending fonts, or use that Find Similar feature to quickly search for fonts that fit our design style without ever leaving the application. So if I like this font and I want to apply it, I can go ahead and click the little cloud download icon here to the right, and I'll get a pop-up asking if I want to add this font. Usually I don't click that by accident, so I like to set Don't Show This Again. I'll just go ahead and click OK. And now once I roll over this icon again, you can see it gives me a little loading icon. And once it changes to the cloud with the X for remove, we know that's been fully loaded. So I could just click that, and now that's applied in my document. I find the Discover tab extremely handy, especially for those jobs where you're not necessarily needing to match a brand font, but you're just looking for a certain style display font, maybe for a one-off design piece. One of my favorite workflows in this panel is to filter by a category to quickly narrow it down and give you a great overview without going to your browser, loading the Adobe Fonts website, and clicking through multiple pages. You can also add fonts as favorites even if you are not planning to install them right away. So if I do that and go back here to my Favorites tab, you can see I've got a preview of that font. So if you just want to mentally bookmark a particular font when you're in that window shopping phase, that's a great way to create a temporary visual collection while you're making your decisions without having to necessarily install every font. So I definitely recommend taking a look at this panel, checking out some of the fancy filter options, and go ahead and make yourself some libraries and mark some favorites so you can find all those fonts you're looking for quickly without having to go into your font organizing program or the Adobe Fonts website.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. And for thousands more how-to articles and tutorials, visit our website, creativepro.com, and become a member today. Thanks for learning with us.